Stay strong. Stay with me.
Hello everybody, welcome to Pretty Good Gaming. My name's Gareth Evans, this is Mr. Henry Cooper.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about Red Dead Redemption 2 and its critical response. Apparently it's not the game of the year.
It might be game of the decade.
It might be game of the decade, apparently, according to a lot of people. The old bait and switch there. So let's have a look at, firstly, the Metacritic score. It's rated a 97 on the PS4 at the time of recording. It's rated a 98 on the Xbox One based on 29 reviews. Now that is phenomenal. It's only 29 reviews, it's not as many as the PS4, but oh holy hell, 98 is amazing. And so that makes it the highest scoring game of the year so far on both of the consoles, hands down. I think Xbox is ahead of Celeste, and the PS4 is ahead of God of War, which is the previous highest one so far this year, which is a 94 for God of War.
In itself is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The fact that it's like 3 points ahead on 97 on the PS4 is fantastic. Makes it the second best game of all time on the Xbox, according to Metacritic, behind Ocarina of Time from 1998. You might remember that. That's got a 99 on Metacritic, so it's been the second best game of all time currently now. It might shift given a few more reviews. We don't know yet. Let's compare that with the previous entries in Rockstar games. GTA 5, that was 97 on both consoles, I believe. Grand Theft Auto 5 is the single most grossing entertainment product of all time. And that's got a 97. The fact that Rockstar managed this with, again, another game of theirs is just a fantastic news for them. But unfortunately, scores don't mean jack.
They don't.
Isn't that right?
Numbers aren't everything.
And as we all know from playing the first Red Dead Redemption, that jack is synonymous with shit. Am I right? Jack?
When that kid walked into the barn when he appears in Red Dead 2. Sorry, Red Dead Redemption 2. I tensed. I had a flash to him with
when
his.
You saw Jack in the game.
Yeah, with his little.
Jack is in Red Dead Redemption 2.
He's probably like 12. I don't think I've ever hated a 12-year-old who wasn't even real so much in my life.
The point is, reviews don't mean jack shit.
Don't mean jack.
So first off, let's look at what IGN said. But they give it a 10 out of 10. So Red Dead Redemption 2 stands shoulder to shoulder with Grand Theft Auto 5 as one of the greatest game of the modern age, say IGN. Rockstar's best storytelling to date. So that's significant. Remember that, like this praise for its storytelling, best storytelling, because they're not everybody agrees on that point. We'll probably get to that in a short while. And this is a game of rare quality, a meticulously polished open world ode to the outlaw era. One of this generation's very best single-player action experiences. Eurogamer gave it a recommended, they don't do review scores, a peerless open world and a story in the shadow of its predecessor. It makes that, right?
Yeah, that's the sentiment they kind of echo through a lot of their review. They're like, it's really, really good, but it's just not quite as good as the first one in terms of story and your protagonist, Arthur Morgan. They're not as keen on him as John Marston, but John Marston is iconic.
Of course he is, yeah.
Always in top 10 lists of video game protagonists.
Yeah, he is.
So I think even getting close to that is a hell of an achievement.
So Eurogamer go on, is it the richest, most beautiful open world? Of that, there's not a single doubt. So praising its world, hands down, it's the richest, most beautiful open world.
Yeah.
So
staggeringly detailed open world, I got as a quote as well. Staggeringly detailed. And that's something that everyone's been saying, even from the previews, is it's the little things that really bring everything together.
Yeah. So let's move on to Kotaku for now. They don't give a score, but they did like the unbelievably detailed world, which we just touched on there. Well-written script. Audio-visual production is technically astonishing, they say. Brilliant acting and very good horses.
Good horses.
Good horses.
I wonder which part they are referring to.
Horse balls, probably. However, they did dislike the fudgy controls.
Yeah, that's a sentiment that's been echoed by Eurogamer again, saying an overly fussy rotary selection system has you all fingers and thumbs when performing even the most perfunctory task. So it seems a bit fiddly and finicky.
That's right.
To try and get what you want to do.
These two aren't the only examples of people criticising the controls, but we'll get on to more of that in a while. That's just something to note, I guess. If more than one outlet touches on something, it might apply to a lot of other players too. Another thing they disliked: animation-based interactions can be frustrating. So there's like the in context, like press L2 and then interact with any character. So these can be frustrating. So I've seen the criticism where people, I think you picked up on it, where one person shot someone by mistake because he was trying to interact, but...
Yeah, because your button to bring your gun up is the same as the button to then fire it. So if you accidentally press it a bit too hard or twice or something and doesn't quite connect right, you'll just kill the guy and it'll then... an entire shootout ensues when you maybe want to have...
just threatened him.
Yeah, threatened him and negotiated and talked your way through it.
Let's move on. WCCF Tech gave it a 9.7. Praised it for its beautiful visuals, excellent music scores, lively, big world, great writing, unforgettable cast of characters, new NPC interaction system that will likely become a new standard in games. Now, this is just what we were touching on, right? It's the NPC interaction system, which Kotaku had a little bit of a problem with. WCCF Tech are saying that this will become a new standard in games. So this is setting the benchmark.
Yeah, I've seen the benchmarks and landmarks as words being thrown around quite a lot for this game. Like, this is now what everything should aspire to be.
Yeah. The cons, they list slow beginning, which I touched on before. It's just Rockstar's way of tutorializing stuff. I get that. I mean, it's 3 hours for me before I got into the open world. If you're restless and you want to just get out in the open world, I can see why that can be frustrating.
Yeah, and with Rockstar games, they're not... It's like they don't want you to... quote unquote play it straight away. They want you to experience it, so you're kind of getting the atmosphere of the game and the way the mechanics work, and then it's like, okay, here's your playground, now have fun after we've eased you in a little bit, unlike GTA where you kind of just dropped in and the world is immediately your playground and you can just tear it up. Red Dead has always been the much kind of slower cousin of GTA.
Red Dead Redemption 2 may not be perfect, this is a quote, but its minor shortcomings are like tiny blemishes on a stunningly beautiful face. So those are kind of a lot of the best things that were said. I have picked up a couple of the worst reviews out there, and those of you paying attention, Slant Magazine gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5, or a 75%. Now this is the worst review out there.
Yeah, by quite a way.
Yeah.
Most of the lowest ones are still 90s.
Yeah.
Still 90s.
I think there's 1 or 2 in the 80s.
Yeah.
But this isn't the outlier. So you've got to look at ones like these, look at the lowest reviews. This is what I always do. And then just try and pick out what the criticisms are and see if they apply to me, whether they hit home with me. The guy criticizes it for its clunky control scheme, which is something that's echoed from a previous review as well. A challenge to navigate around a table or requiring you to hold down buttons to move at acceptable speeds. I get that. Moving slow. It kind of makes sense. Is it going to be enough for me to not enjoy the game? Probably not.
Probably not.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is at its worst when it tries to self-consciously make important statements. So talking about politics here. Yeah. Another one of the quotes is, it's ham-fisted grasp on politics. And whenever I start reading that shit in a review, I'm like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's like criticizing it for all the wrong reasons. Play the game, talk to me about the game. Talk to me about the gameplay, talk to me about the world, talk to me about the environments, talk to me about how all that works together. Don't talk to me about politics. That's just, there's no place in games.
Don't show off how woke you are as a journalist and be like, oh, there's not enough representation of this, and this. Like, that's not what this game is about.
Yeah.
So trying to do
that's kind of why I was like, right, this guy's reviewing it for the wrong reasons. Let's just move on. And that's kind of why what I left that review with. One of the other lowest ones was New Game Network rated it an 82. 82 is still a really high score, man. It's so good.
Big score.
But the criticisms are the narrative does suffer quite a bit due to its pacing and repetitive nature. So again, a bit slow. Yeah. Lengthy travel times.
Yeah, fast travel is there, but apparently you can only do it at certain times and in certain places.
Yes.
I think Games Radar came out, they were a very positive review, and in their cons, pretty much just fast travel. And if that's like top of your list of bad things, can't be that bad. It's a bit annoying.
Well, I mean, I can understand,
especially with worlds getting even bigger and bigger.
I can understand if you get bored by just doing horseback travel or whatever, and you just don't want to take in all the scenery and just don't want to look at the beautiful vistas and all the fabulous animations and the world.
Get to where you're going
and get to the end. You've got to remember a lot of these reviews are done under the pressure of a deadline as well. So they're playing the game in a way that we don't play the game. We don't play the game with a deadline to produce a review. Maybe, what a lot of these frustrations to do with the travel times are echoing, really. The fact that they have to do it for a living. and they're not there to necessarily enjoy it. And one of the more notable criticisms, however, was the morality system. Now, this is something that returns from the previous game, where if you do something good, you get some brownie points. If you do something bad, you get, people start disliking you. Now, the criticism of this morality system is that if you do an equal amount of good and bad things, you'll stay in the middle and nobody changes. Nothing, it doesn't affect anything. I'll read out the quote. Being balanced or only slightly leaning either way has little impact. And as the meter is so slow moving, you will need to be very focused on which direction you want to go to see any effects. So that's a pretty specific criticism, and that's quite valid. That could be really valid. I have to play it as a bad guy, as a good guy, to be able to tell what the actual differences are. But this is something that we said before going into this game. We wish they would improve for the sequel, right?
I mean, it's a tricky thing to implement because you're afforded that much player freedom. And in Red Dead Redemption 1, it really didn't mean anything. If you got good honor, you got some discounts in shops, and when you tip your hat to people, they say hello. But if you're bad, they grumble at you and kind of hide. And I do think I would have liked a little bit more to it, but I haven't played it yet, so I can't.
However, what we do know is that the way that you treat people specifically will have an effect on how they treat you. So outside of this overbearing morality system, there's the contextual person to person, one-on-one. So that might have an effect on all of this, because if you kill somebody's son or something, or brother or whatever, someone's family member, or you do someone a good turn, that it completely affects how they...
Yeah, and from what I gather, that's very important for the gang and the gang dynamic, because you can be walking through and someone will say hello to you, well then if you don't do their mission in a certain way, that you say hello to them and they'll just kind of ignore you, just give you the cold shoulder.
There you go. That's picking apart some of the reviews and some of what we've read. So Eurogamer did have some other very specific things. They said the writing...
Yeah, their biggest problem was with the story and the writing, which has been praised by a lot of other people.
Yeah.
So, got a quote here. By drawing the clock back 10 years, the sequel feels like a story in stasis. So that kind of says to me that it's a story that's not really going anywhere. It's just kind of there. What else we got that they said? So there's this new thing which is a bit akin to Breath of the Wild, where you had to equip like a big jacket if you're going to a cold area, or take stuff off if you're going to a hot area. That sort of stuff is in this, but apparently it's, quote, fuzzy throughout and inelegant, inconsequential, and both thankfully and damningly easy to ignore. So it is there, and it's not very good, but you don't even need it anyway. My main thing about equipping and unequipping clothes is just to look cool.
Yeah, it's cosmetics for the most part, yeah. And
I think it'll... So if you're in a big jacket, it'll lumber you a bit if you're in a hot place.
Yeah.
But then you can just summon your horse and take it off. I think that's the concept they're going for. And if it's a bit awkward, I'll probably just leave it on.
This is the what they've got to try and balance out now, because they've got this new system in the way that your stats work. You've got to keep your character fed. You've got to cut his hair. You've got to keep him warm, keep him cool, whatever. And now this is the balance between gameplay and simulation, right?
Yeah.
Being really too realistic to be fun, and actual being fun. So it's trying to keep the balance in between.
Yeah.
Trying to go that way to be realistic, but without being not fun, essentially.
So some people really like those little details of having to do these things like the shaving and the and bathing and all that stuff. Then other people, it's just an inconvenience. I think Jim Sterling came out and said that was kind of his biggest downside, was that... So I've got his quote here. As a game, Red Dead Redemption 2 is inspired and brilliant, as the product of a 60-hour plus work week should be at bare minimum. As an overly detailed cowboy simulator, not so much. So he kind of had a gripe with the faithfulness to realism, and he kind of would like a few more liberties taken. A good example he uses is when you summon your horse, and this really annoyed me in Breath of the Wild, because they did a similar thing. Your horse has to be within earshot for when you whistle. Yeah. So it can't be... You can't just leave it somewhere and then whistle and it will appear off camera and walk in. You have to be nearby. So if you've left your horse behind and you're miles and miles away, you're kind of just stuck, and you got to walk. And I mean, there's realism, but it does sound pretty annoying.
You have to balance that with being fun.
Exactly. Rockstar games do walk the line of whether fun or storytelling or realism comes first, because a game is a game. That's what separates a game from a movie, right? Is the player interaction and the ability to have fun and do what you want to do comfortably without being like annoyed.
So that pretty much sums up the reviews, and based on a 50 to 70 hour game, a single player game at that, without the multiplayer, because the multiplayer isn't even launched yet, that comes additional to this. You have to say that this is a must play for anybody who has a console. PC players and gripes the fact that it isn't on PC. That aside, if you have a console, this is contender, if not game of the year, based on these Metacritic score.
Yeah.
Maybe game of the decade, possibly.
Maybe.
A lot of people are saying that too. Maybe best game of all time if you take out Ocarina of Time.
Well,
That's how good these scores are saying. That's not me saying that. That's these scores on Metacritic. That's the critics, right? So do with that as you will. So I hope that helped you out. Just to echo everything that was said, it was storytelling, writing, acting, characters, audio, scores, sound, the world, all fantastic. Everyone says that across the board. Some of the cons that were echoed is the control scheme and the fast travel system. Not so good. So there you have it. That kind of sums up Red Dead Redemption 2. We're going to go and play it now. We've done enough talking. Let's go and play the game, right? Makes sense.
I mean, I haven't even had hands on yet. I've been watching you play, and even that, because you can do the cinematic camera stuff, I'm just like, look at that.
Looks beautiful. Good
Stuff.
feeling.
Still, I want to get on record my prediction. Not played it yet. We're not even with a couple hours in. When we were playing earlier. My prediction, just like in the first one, when John, spoiler alert, when John dies at the end and you take over as Jack, my prediction, Arthur's going to die. John's going to take over as the player character.
We all need that in our lives. We need to play as John again.
Then we can completely forget about Jack. I'll never have to
worry about
work
that
the damn
shit
man
again.
Yeah, if I can then safely put my Red Dead Redemption 1 in a lovely little box and be like, you're done.
You're done.
You are finished,
R.I.P.
my child. Rip. Yeah, it will be a ceremonial burning with a big pyre. I'll hire a choir
until they remaster it, and then you have to relive it all again. Anyway, that's enough from us, guys. I hope you enjoyed the game, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, from Henry and I, bye for now.
Arthur,
How's a cigar?
not bad. But sometimes I prefer a pipe. I've been meaning to get one for ages. I left the old one
And Blackwater, I know. Well, if I find one, you can have it.
Well, you are a gentleman, Mr. Morgan.